So we're so excited to have Natalie on today, and we're going to be talking about painful sex. Like, this is a topic that needs to be discussed because it's a common thing that can happen. And when it does happen, then you get anxiety around it, and it can make it even worse. And so we're going to talk about some of the things of why this happens and kind of how we can take care of some of these things. So, Natalie, welcome.
Hey, good to be here.
So tell us a little bit about painful sex. I know they have another name for it that no one understands or knows, but the medical terminology does, but that doesn't matter.
Yeah, so painful sex, the medical term that will be tossed around is what's called dyspareunia. So it's pain with intercourse or any penetration, really. And so it can be experienced by a lot of people, a lot of women for sure. But yeah, I'm excited to talk more about it.
So give us a little bit about like what people feel, what some of their frustration. I mean, obviously there's frustrations around that.
Mhm.
Obvious frustrations from having just being intimate with your partner. But
Right.
tell us a little bit about kind of what it feels because it can vary from
Hmm.
patient to patient.
Right. So every patient is different. But some feelings that have just been described in therapy is almost just like almost kind of like you're hitting a wall almost. It's like I can't it can't go any further, essentially. It's stuck there. Or just kind of like this, even described as just like a shooting pain of like, it gets one direction in one place and then it just shoots around my body. Like it just hurts. And then we have to stop. Right. But yeah, so a shooting pain, a sharp pain, hitting the wall. Those are just a couple feelings, that are described. But yeah, to kind of dive into your point that you made earlier, there is that physical component of those feelings, right? But then there's also the emotional component too. And so even if you begin to experience these feelings just like during intercourse, it's almost just like, okay, what's wrong? What's wrong with me, right? Like it's my fault
Yeah.
that we can't be together in this way, right? And that's the last thing you want to admit to, right? Like that's the last thing you want is like I'm the reason that
Yeah.
we can't do this. And so there are also just feelings of being a burden and not being able to like perform or just like love your partner like in that way. And so it's definitely very hard for these people, and they're almost just kind of suffering in silence too, because it, thankfully it's not as taboo, but in the past it has been taboo to even just talk about these things and these struggles, these very real struggles. And again, so just feeling isolated too, because even though it is common to experience it, like people do experience it and it is becoming more known. There's that feeling of isolation of just like, I can't talk to anyone about this. Like, I'm the only one that's experiencing this. Like, it must be something that I'm doing. Right. So yeah, those are just a couple of the many feelings that people can go through just in these moments. So
What are some common causes that kind of create this issue typically?
yeah, so I think one thing, unfortunately, like the orthopedic sense of people carry their tension in their neck and their
Yeah.
shoulders. There are also people that can carry their tension in their pelvic floor, where their pelvic floor muscles are just on and they just can't relax. They can't relax. And so because of that, anytime you're wanting to insert something, and it doesn't even have to be for intercourse, but even trying to insert a tampon sometimes too can just be painful because the muscles should be able to relax to open up, but instead they're not. And so then whenever they feel something entering, it can almost like tighten up more of
Yep.
just like, oh no, like nope, no entry here, you know. So that's one thing of just like carrying stress there. But then another thing too, like, and again, we've talked about this in previous podcasts, but just your breathing as well and how that impacts your pelvic floor, but and just the lack of breathing too. And also just your nervous system as well. If we're, you know, we're not breathing, and also just all of the other components that come with this very sensitive topic. It's almost kind of like the nervous system is on overdrive of just like fight or flight. And again, tensing up all the time. And so we're not able to relax the nervous system and just down train it. So that can also be another cause of painful intercourse too. So
Yeah, and that's common. Ooh, these days, so many people are just
yeah.
overwhelmed, and especially as females, we feel like we take on the world and we say yes to everything. We're really bad about
Mhm.
that.
Mhm.
And we aren't good at taking care of ourselves because we're taking care of so many other people. And
Right.
that just eventually just feeds into itself. So
Right. No, absolutely. Absolutely. And it's really unfortunate, but I am glad that we are coming to this point of just like, no, like we do need to take care of ourselves. And, you know, the weight of the world does not have to be on my shoulders like
yep,
all the time, right? Because again, too, like you can only provide for someone to the extent that you yourself are provided for.
yep,
Like I always use the analogy of just like if my cup is empty, I can't pour into other people,
yep.
right? And so it's the same with this too, of just yeah, we just need to sometimes, I don't know, it'll be okay.
I know it's hard. It's a total mindset. I mean, I've gone through it myself. And it's just it's a part of it's a journey that people are on. And at some point
Mhm.
people hit rock bottom, and when they do, they'll like, okay, I don't want to be here anymore. And so what can I do to change me and how I'm thinking about certain things? And so that's been a huge journey for myself because
Oh yeah.
like I said, I've done it. I've been there where you're just like, yes, yes, yes. And then, your body's falling apart. So I think as females, we just have to be aware of that, but also realize where people are in their journey. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and supporting them with where they are at, because eventually
Right.
they'll be ready to make some of those changes themselves.
Oh yeah. Well, and also being patient with yourself too, because I think sometimes we forget that our body is very good at defending us.
Yep.
And what do I mean by that? You know, like if you've experienced pain at any point in your life in a specific situation, your body is going to remember that and your brain is going to remember that and say, okay, like this bad thing happened to us at this in this situation. So if we're put in this similar situation again, we're going to tense up like
Yep.
and be on guard and like ready,
Yep.
right? Um and so if we're, you know, let's take sex for that situation of just like if you have had pain in the past, your brain, it the next time, you know, you want to be intimate with your partner, again, the brain remembers that, and then it just nope, we're
Yep.
gonna tighten up and we're not gonna relax because we know pain's coming, right? It's almost like you're expecting to be in pain.
Yep.
And so then it's just by that point it's not enjoyable for either of you, right? And then
Yep.
there's also too that component of, you know, your partner not wanting to hurt you as well. And so
Yep.
then it's kind of like, well, I don't want to hurt, you know,
Yep.
and so then it's just a whole mess of things as well. So it's
Yeah.
definitely like a lot of like retraining and also creating positive experiences to kind of break that cycle
Cycle. Yep.
too. Mhm.
I always describe it as there'll be a time and place. So think of like a movie and that you saw maybe, let's say 15 years ago, and you hear a song in that movie, and that song takes you right back to that place. And so
Mhm.
you've got to go and dissociate or deal with whatever it was that got you there.
Right.
don't deal with that piece of it, then you're going to constantly have some of these issues. And so that's where that emotional component comes into play with physical
Right.
therapy, and understanding that there is that piece, and helping people navigate that, or getting them
Mhm.
to a place that will be able to help them navigate that. But it is a, I always say there's like 5 ways people feel pain. Well, motion is one of them, and understanding
Mhm.
where that comes from, because it's a big piece. And if you don't get to the
Mhm.
source of why it's happening, then
Mhm.
you're just treating symptoms.
Right. Right. And just reminding people that, you know, everything that you're feeling and everything that you're thinking, like it's not all in your head,
Yep.
and just like validating that and
Yep.
making sure that they know that
Yep.
too. I think it's just a big component as well. Because we can just get down on ourselves and be like, well, I should just be over this. Like,
Yep.
what's the deal? And it's like, no, like, no, we really need to like dive into this and sit with this and talk about it and kind of come up with a plan of action to get back to what we want to be doing,
Yep.
So
And that's what we do here. Help you
yeah.
to have a plan of action to get back to feeling great again.
Exactly. So
Well, thank you so much. This is awesome. It's always great education to help people just understand that they're not alone. I mean, that's a big piece, because anytime anything happens to no matter what it is, we're always like, it's only me. It only happens to me. Why? Like,
Mhm.
that's what our brain kind of goes to. And this is a common thing that does happen, and it doesn't have to happen. And I think
Right.
that's the big key to take away from this, is that it doesn't have to happen, that you can get back to feeling great again.
Oh yeah, absolutely.